Dr. Jonathan Tripp is joining us in studio this morning, and well, he spells it with two P's, but he's going on a trip with one P,
That's right.
and we'll be talking about that this morning. And he's going to be sharing some of the reasons why he does that, but also why other people in this community do things similar. First of all, a quick correction: you have been to Venezuela in the past on a mission trip, but you are not going to Venezuela. You're going to Nicaragua,
Correct.
which is not too far away from Venezuela. Maybe a few hundred miles and past a couple of other small borders before you get there.
Yep. Yeah, it's Nicaragua is a tough one to say. Well, where are we geographically, unless you're really familiar with Central America? But you go from Mexico down to Guatemala, and then you get into Nicaragua, and below that is Costa Rica. Most people have at least heard of Costa Rica because it's a great tourist place to go. But
It's a narrow little isthmus that connects the two main continents,
correct.
and the countries there have had some uneven histories. And in Nicaragua, they had the Sandinistas in control in the 80s, and a lot of governments and have come and gone. There were movies made about the Civil War there. It's a country that still has a lot of challenges.
Yeah, in fact, Nicaragua, depending on what source you look at, is either the second most or the first most poor country in the Americas. So this is definitely an area that has lots of underserved needs, and it is one that you don't think of as a tourist destination, but it has its capital city and plenty of typical problems within the capital itself. But what we're doing is joining a group called Color My World that it goes down to a very remote area, about 3 hours outside of this capital city, and really is in a coastal area. So you'd think, hey, that's a resort type of a visit, but
No, Managua is the capital,
it
right?
is. It
Right.
is. And this is a remote area that uh, there's not really anything like running water or electricity, and yet the people have water resources to some degree. They aren't dressed in grass skirts or anything like that. So if you saw them, you'd say, okay, they're on the poorer side. But until you actually see where they live and what they live in, you don't really understand the desperation of their situation.
Now, for the people who the people from this community doing these things routinely, we just don't hear about it. They're not necessarily looking for publicity, but if we mention it, maybe it will encourage some other folks too to say, you know what, maybe I need to get involved.
Yeah, my enthusiasm for this really, as I look around the things I've heard of in our community, we have this. This is an unusually service-oriented community. Whether it's here locally, we even have a chapter of Habitat for Humanity that goes all over the world to places like I'm talking about, but also right here, and I've more. I think most recently it's been over in Burley or Rupert that they've built a house or two on behalf of somebody that's in need, and it allows our local people to stay local and do service for those that really are in serious need. Um, that's one example. We have uh, a service group. If you think of Valley House, it's a great organization to help shelter women in bad circumstances. There's a lot of things that go on here that we don't even know of. You call it the soup kitchen if you want, but the Catholic Church down by the park downtown has regular meals for anybody who wants to show up, and our family's had an opportunity to serve there a time or two. So there's lots of people in our community doing a lot of good things. I want to talk about other people that go outside of the U.S. for this. I know several dentists that have taken several, not one, but several trips to China, and you think, well, why would you go to China? Well, outside of their big cities, China is just desperate for medical attention.
Sure.
So all over the world, we have this. We have a gentleman I know that takes. His name is Rob Sturgill, so I'll give him a little fame that maybe he doesn't want. But he takes, I think it's twice, maybe three times a year, a group to the Philippines, to some of their smaller areas and islands, and builds small homes, helps with schools as well as dental or medical attention. So he's doing a wide variety of service within the Philippines. And so this is really the first opportunity that I've had to take my entire family and be part of a group that does not really profit by our coming there. The people do, but this group called Color My World, truly, they're building small houses. They are serving in an orphanage. They are feeding people that literally live on the fringe of a huge garbage dump. So it's multiple areas that they actually work in, that we'll be part of. But this is an opportunity to make an impact, and the money we spend to go there and be there is going 100% to these people in such need. So a lot of the organizations I looked at, uh, they cost 2,000 or 3,000 or more per person, and they'll in their literature will say, hey, 10% of what you send to us actually goes back into that local community, which to me says, so 90% is going to either my stay or to your organization for whatever other administrative things you have. And this group truly only has one employed person, and yet, they take groups of 30 people, 6 or 8 times a summer down to this area. So I think this is a very deserving organization.
We've got more coming up with Dr. Jonathan Tripp in just a few minutes, and we'll be talking about his visit to Central America and perhaps some people who would like to get involved in some of these things in the future too as well. I might want to chime in, and we'll talk about that coming up in a few minutes. It's 20 minutes now from 9 o'clock, and we have 60. You're listening to News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Bill Colley answering the telephones on Better Health this morning with Tripp Family Medicine. Dr. Jonathan Tripp joining us in studio this morning. And well, a couple of things you'd like to do too as well. We'd like to hear from some people who've actually been involved in some community service, whether it be if you traveled and you went somewhere else, maybe mission work, or if you're doing it on the local level, and maybe explain what it does for you. Because most people, when years ago, my daughter used to travel, or my niece rather, used to travel to Kentucky, and she would go there and work for Habitat. Uh, she started when she was 12 or 13 years old, and she's still doing these things a decade later, and she finds it very fulfilling. So we would be interested in hearing from some of you who might have a testimonial. 736-0300, that's 736-0300. Of course, Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And, she started doing that. They'd go down to Frankfort, Kentucky when she was just a little girl.
Okay.
And so children get involved in this. And, you mentioned that your children are involved too as well. But this is a big sacrifice for them, from what I understand.
It is. I mean, my children are used to going to, football camp or other things and taking, their biggest interest was, what are we going to do camping this year, things like that. But this is something that they have become interested in by doing some local service opportunities. And to take it to an international level, uh, they're excited about it. But I'm also asking them to pay their own way. And, they got to come up with about $1,500 a piece
Wow.
to do this, and it makes them more responsible. And we've talked about where to get a job or do this, and my boys have come up with the plan that they have the right equipment and they are good at doing this, and they want to do a lawn service that will start immediately and move through the whole summer. Of course, the time that they're gone to Nicaragua, which is about 10 days, they won't be able to do that, but they're looking to basically mow lawns and take care of yards. And so if anybody needs that done and would like to help some boys move their way towards serving others, because that money will go to that service opportunity, we'd love to have you call our office. And let me give you a phone number on that. And then I want to tell you about other ways you can be involved with either helping with supplies or even monetary donations for the things we're going to do. Um, the phone number at the office is 208 933 4400. And I'll repeat that, 208 933 4400. Now, new patients can call there too, old patients can call there too. But this is an opportunity to, if you want to invite my boys to mow your lawn, they'd love to come out and check that out, give you an estimate. The other is that we are going to produce a little Ziploc bag called a hygiene kit. It'll be things as simple as soap and a washcloth and underarm and toothbrush and toothpaste and things like that we take for granted. That these people that have virtually nothing don't even understand the importance of brushing your teeth. And as a physician, I know that if you have pretty good oral hygiene, you reduce your risk of diabetes, you reduce your risk of heart disease, and you keep your teeth in your mouth, which might be a real motivator for the people that, they're used to seeing each other by age 30. They don't have many teeth left in their mouth.
Right.
So this could be a major shift for the children in particular.
We have a telephone caller with us. And caller, you're up next at 8:47 with Dr. Jonathan Tripp.
Hey, Doc, Tripp. Congratulations on the volunteer work that you do.
Thank you.
And I would also like to encourage other medical practitioners, anybody. My daughter is volunteering for the kids that are coming across the border. Some of them have been shot, stabbed, and they got TV and stuff. And usually the Border Patrol will take them there, and she will see them. The other day, she saw like 60 kids all in one day.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, you don't even have to go far to Nicaragua to see what's going on right there on the border with
Yeah.
these kids that are getting beat up, crossing the border and stuff. And it's like I understand that there's a few people that don't appreciate that, but you know what? Where is our humanity? And we ourselves, we 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 recover funds here to send them down there, and she puts in her work to tend to these kids. But I'm telling you, the other day, 60 kids in one day. That is insane.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
And
for
you know,
that.
he brings up a good point. He's been working with his daughter, and obviously when she was being raised, there's this is the whole point you're making about your sons being involved too. You've got to get the children involved, but they will then grow up and they will have that altruistic side too as well.
They'll see the purposes behind service, and the beauty of that is, I'll give a quick example. My now 14, almost 15-year-old, a couple of years ago, we had the opportunity to just help an older lady through church connection that needed her yard cleaned up. It was basically just overrun, and she had trees and grass and bushes and little garden spots that had gone all bad. And I said, we're going to go do this on, I can't remember, it was a Wednesday or Thursday night. And he just fought tooth and nail, did not want to do this, didn't want any part. Why do we have to do this? I've got other things to do. And so I forced him to go. And we worked there for a little over an hour. So it doesn't sound like much, but he worked his tail off the whole time, got back in the car as we drove away. And he says, I like that. That was really good. And I said, what was it you liked? He says, well, it just felt good to do it. He couldn't even explain why.
When my daughter was about 9, we went to the local veteran cemetery, and a small group of us decorated all of the graves for Memorial Day weekend with the flags. And at the time, I didn't think she would enjoy this, but then the following year, she said, "Are we going back to the cemetery?"
Yeah.
So she was looking forward to it.
That's funny because we had that same opportunity about a year later, same house, and he still was like, "Well, I did have a good time," and he went a second time to the same place, and that became, like you say, a solid memory for him to say, when I'm serving, helping somebody that actually needs, it feels really good to do that. And I can give you my philosophies on it, but a big part of it is it just helps us step out of our own issues, our own needs, our own routine. And it is a feel good, and it's more than a feel good. It actually does, it benefits somebody else. And that's, we're usually looking at, what do I need to do? What do I have that, has to get done? And that's our day in and day out, and we go a million miles an hour. And to take a step out of that routine and say, what does somebody else need, really changes our perspective. And often it's a perspective that just says, they aren't devastated, they're not impoverished, but they had a need, and I was able to help out. And if it's worse than that, it helps you gain perspective to say, you know what, as tough as I think I have it, as hard as my routine is, or as tough are my finances, there's always somebody that has it much worse, whether it's financially or health wise or relationship wise. So I really encourage this because our community is really good at this, but in general, it helps us individually feel better and do better.
Now, when we were talking a little bit about the need for the toiletries last year, it might have been in the spring. I walked into Fred Meyer, and there was a young man working on his Eagle Scout project, and he was doing the very same thing. And he was passing out lists of things they were collecting while he was standing there in that lobby area between the doors, and people could go shop for these items and bring them back. But they were doing the same thing. They were taking these to Central America as part of his project,
Yes.
and he pointed that out to me that day when I was talking with him about the tremendous need. And you said people don't. don't have access to simple things like deodorant and sometimes even a bar of soap in that part of the world.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like the old days in the Wild West where, they made their soap out of the fat from their animals, so you have a lye type of soap, and that does happen somewhat, but these are people that often they don't even have, a pig to kill to make the soap. So, um, they're relying on garbage dumps to sift through and figure out what they can get a hold of. So, it's hard to even understand the difference between living in the U.S. and that type of situation. But
I've never traveled in that part of the world, and I guess you could make a point if people would do more, uh, get out and see these places, that perhaps it would at least make people start to think about their own place in the grand scheme of things in the cosmos.
yeah, it helps us understand that we live in relative wealth, even if we're on the lower socioeconomic status of the U.S. But let me kind of go back to that list idea. We're going to be putting on our website and our Facebook page, which let me give you those Facebook
Is the
page.
Facebook page? Well, the website's been redesigned, right?
It's being redesigned as we speak. But we're going to put a list for the hygiene kit of supplies that if you'd like to donate, you can bring them to our office. If you want to, donate in a monetary way, we can take that, through a phone call or a visit to our office. But we'll put the list of the types of things that we want to put in these hygiene kits. We'd love to have, this completely donated. On the other hand, you know, one way or another, between my kids' work and our support as their parents, we will put these together. But we're going to take 100 to 200 pounds worth of these hygiene kits down with us, and that's it's a cost to us as well because we got to pay for the extra baggage and whatnot to take that. But um, this this has an impact, and that's only one thing we're going to do there. I'll be helping serve medical needs. My children will be helping build houses, and this is there's a lot of things to be done in a community like this.
And even in that part of the world, I mean, it's not necessarily remote. You're not talking Amazon jungle, but there aren't simply grocery stores or a Walgreens where someone can walk in and even find these things, even if they could afford them.
Exactly. Yeah, the remoteness or the distance is a big preventative as to being able to have access to even these basic things that we take for granted. So let me give you our website is trippfamilymedicine.com, and our Facebook page is Tripp Family Medicine. So we'll post a list there of what you can bring to us or supply us with, and they're simple things. They're like toothbrushes and toothpaste and soap and small washcloth, deodorant, things like that. So, and for the women, we're going to try to include some feminine hygiene products as well. So, these are basics, and they are not providing anybody with any wealth, but hopefully with a new routine of how to take care of themselves. And that's where I'll be doing some basic health education on dental and physical hygiene and how to how to maintain your health better.
We have another caller with us. We've got a couple of minutes left in the segment with Dr. Jonathan Tripp this morning, Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine, and you're on KLIX with the doctor. Well, they were close.
Let me give the phone number again for those who want to contact the office. It's 208 933 4400, and we'd appreciate any help you'd like to give, and want you to know that as a family and as an office, we serve in various ways that we usually don't talk about, but because we would like the community support on this effort, we're bringing it up on the show today.
I think we have our caller back. Caller, you're on the air.
Good morning, Dr. Tripp. I think this would be an excellent opportunity to get a hold of some of the churches around here and have the youth groups gather together, and then not only helps them to give, but helps them to work as a team.
I think that's an excellent idea.
And a lot of these youth groups, we can help them maybe raise some of the funds, and they could do a trip like this on their own. I think that it wouldn't be that difficult to get many of them involved.
Yeah, and what I've learned by trying to research these trips is, anybody can do a trip and go give out some stuff. It's kind of like giving candy at the parade. Excuse me. But what's important, I think, is to look for somebody or a program that is perpetuating, improvement rather than just a single stop and say, hey, do you have a cold? I can help. I can help fix that. Or do you need a shirt? I love that. But is it something that you're helping that community actually build themselves? So, there's a scriptural reference that you can, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but if you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And that's what we're looking for, is to try to help out in that way.
And someday, if we can turn this around, perhaps when times are tough here, someone would reciprocate.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it's sorry, it's one person at a time. That's exactly how I make a change. It'd be nice to say I can change a country, but the truth is we do it one person and one generation at a time.
we'll talk with you, I guess, sometime soon.
I think we got Russell coming next week.
Okay.
He'll have a hot topic, I'm sure.
All right. I want to thank Dr. Jonathan Tripp for dropping by today. We've got news coming up in just about a minute or so, and then we're going to have a guest from an organization called Pro English. He'll be joining us for a few minutes following 9 o'clock news right here on Top Story on KLIX.